My name is Frances, and here's my story. So I wanted to go to this party, like any normal teenage girl, right? My dad probably would have let me go, but my stepmom, she said no way. My mom died when I was little, and my stepmom raised me. She was always nice to me, not like a wicked stepmother or whatever. But my mum's death left me with some anger issues, and it was hard for me to accept my stepmom as a replacement. Whenever she tries to tell me what to do, I still feel a lot of resentment and anger. So when she said no to this party, which was the biggest party of the year, I was furious. I told her, "You're not my mother. You don't get to decide what I do." I guess that was the last straw for her too, because she yelled back that she had a responsibility to keep me safe, and I needed to learn to listen to her. It turned into a huge screaming match, and when I finally stormed off to my room, I was so mad that I couldn't think straight. All I could focus on was how much I wanted to get revenge on her. So I slapped myself as hard as I could across the face. And then I did it again. I kept doing it until my cheek was bruised and swollen. When I looked in the mirror, I couldn't believe the damage I'd done. But I'd barely felt it because of the anger and adrenaline. I ran out of the house and went to the police station. It was weird being inside the station. I started to get nervous under the harsh fluorescent lights, waiting for someone to speak to me. Eventually, an officer asked me what was wrong. I let him look at my cheek and told him my stepmother had hit me. I told him I was afraid of her, afraid to go home. He asked if she'd done this before. That's when I really started to get nervous. I'd only meant to tell one lie, but now he was asking for a whole backstory on my relationship with my stepmom. I panicked and said yes, she'd hit me before, hoping that would make my story more believable. But when he asked for details, I had trouble making up convincing lies. The officer said he would drive me home and speak to my stepmom. My heart was pounding the whole way home. I was starting to think this was a really bad idea. What if my stepmom went to jail? I wanted to scare her, but now it seemed like things were going way too far. My dad answered the door. He looked horrified when he saw my face, and even more horrified when he saw I was with a police officer. I hadn't even thought about how my lie would affect him. I suddenly wanted to call the whole thing off, but I couldn't tell a police officer I'd lied. The officer asked my dad to go elsewhere. He wanted to talk to just my stepmom and me. When my stepmom saw my face, she immediately asked if I was okay and who had done this to me. She sounded so worried that I began to feel sick with guilt. But I had to stay strong. If I admitted my lie, I could be in huge trouble with the cops. So I told her, "Don't play dumb. You did this." Her mouth fell open, and she looked too shocked to speak. The officer explained that I'd claimed she hit me and that she'd done it before. He told us he had to take a charge like this very seriously, so it was very important that we each told the story as truthfully as possible. I could barely breathe. I was so scared. My stepmom looked at me, then at the officer. "I promise you," she said, "I would never hurt this girl for anything in the world. I love her like a daughter." Then my stepmom began to cry and continued, "But she has never loved me." That stunned me. I never realized she felt that way. I had always been kind of resentful of her, sure, but at the same time, I needed a mother figure, and deep down, I loved my stepmom. I knew our fight about the party was a fight I probably would have had with my real mom if she was alive. It was a normal mother-daughter thing to fight about. And the fact that we had fought about it just proved how much like a mother and daughter we were to each other. I didn't know what to do. I was afraid it's too late to do or say anything. I then heard my stepmom talking to my dad on the phone. She said, "I'm not crying because I'm going to jail. I'm crying because Frances never loved me the way I love her." The officer took me aside and told me if there's anything I want to tell him, I can still do so after I take some time relaxing and talking to my stepmom. I started crying again, this time harder, and said that I will talk to him soon. Then he left me alone with my stepmom, and I was so scared she would yell at me or hate me. But I made myself face her. and I told her that I was never able to accept her and that I first loved the idea of her going to jail. I explained that I never wanted anyone but my real mom, but then I said I'm sorry for everything and that I love her. I told her that she has always been a mother to me and I appreciate all her efforts. I hugged her tight and we both just cried. So, I understand that I acted very childishly and selfishly, but I always felt like I am betraying my mother for loving my stepmom. But now I guess I know that my mother is happy that I am loved this way by my stepmom. What did you think of this story? Share your experiences below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel.
Hi, I'm Lizzie, and I recently discovered something strange in my house. My family had lived in this house ever since I was born. So it's really bizarre that I'd only discovered this at the age of 14. I guess my family is quite secretive. My dad is away on business trips a lot, and he doesn't tell me much about what he does. And my mom has always been at home with me and my brothers. But occasionally she does write some articles for magazines and stuff. My mom has a lot of friends, and they are always over at our house, especially when my dad is away. It's kind of annoying because she doesn't hang out with me much since she's always with them. And whenever I ask if I can join, she says no because they're talking about adult stuff, and I'd find it boring. These women usually come over once or twice a week, and they gather in our basement. The basement in our house is awesome. It's full of comfy seats like cushions and beanbags, and it's just a nice space to relax in. But yeah, on the nights my mom's friends are over, I'm not allowed down there. It's weird because they're always so quiet, and I never hear them laughing or anything. One night, my curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to go down and see what they were doing. It was deadly silent, and I thought maybe they weren't even there. I opened the door to the basement as quietly as I could and tiptoed down the stairs. I couldn't believe it. There was no one there. But it didn't make sense. I'd literally watched them with my own eyes go down into the basement about 30 minutes ago. If they'd left the house, I hadn't heard the door. As I looked around the basement, I noticed the bookcase wasn't in its usual spot. I went up to it, and that's when I noticed it. Behind the bookcase was a door. I just stood there in shock. Had this always been here? I put my ear up to the door, and I heard my mom's voice. She was inside some kind of secret room. I suddenly panicked and ran back upstairs to the kitchen. This was too weird. I didn't mention it to my mom, but I couldn't sleep that night. I kept wondering what she was doing there. After I was sure my mom was in bed, I went back to the basement and moved the bookcase as quietly as I could. The door was unlocked and I opened it. I held my breath. I had no idea what to expect. As I walked in, I was hit by the strong scent of incense. I turned on the light and just stared. The room wasn't very big, but it was covered in these strange paintings. I don't even know how to describe them. There were some with angels, and some looked terrifying. Especially this one of women gathered in a forest around a fire. On the floor was a huge rug, and in the middle were a lot of objects I'd never seen before. There were tarot cards and crystals and rocks and a round wooden board with strange symbols on it. I instantly felt uneasy. I shouldn't have been in there. There was even a long wooden thing that looked like some kind of wand. What was my mom doing down here? I decided to leave before anything scary happened. The energy in the room didn't feel right. I left making sure I left everything as it was before so my mom wouldn't notice. The next time the women came over was 2 days later. This was my chance. After about 20 minutes of them being here, I went to the basement and looked through the keyhole into this secret room. I could see my mom sat in the middle of the circle. She had her hands on some kind of crystal ball, and her eyes looked all wild and crazy, and she was chanting. Some of the women were grinning, and some looked shocked. I felt so uncomfortable watching this. Suddenly, my mom stopped chanting and turned to the women and started telling them things about her life. The woman was crying and saying how it was all true. The woman was crying and saying how it was all true, and that my mom was amazing and the best fortune teller she'd ever been to. My mom is a fortune teller? But how? How did I not know this? And what does that even mean? Is she some kind of witch? The next thing she did was pick up her wand and start circling the women. One of the women fell over onto her knees and started rolling her head around and laughing. I couldn't watch anymore. I ran to my room feeling sick. I wonder if my dad knew what my mom was doing down there. Surely he'd know about the room. It doesn't feel right that my mom is doing this kind of magic stuff in our house. I feel so worried that bad things might start happening to us. I don't know if I should talk to my mom and tell her I know what she's up to. Now it all makes sense. Why she didn't ever want me to come down and join them? What if it's dangerous? I really don't know what to do. What do you think of this story? Please feel free to share your comments and stories in the comment section below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel.